Well, I hope you're enjoying watching the hit series Moses and the 10 Commandments, which you can catch every weekday here on MyTV at 9 p.m. and with repeats every day at 12 p.m. But now it's time for the Chrissy B Show, the UK's only programme dedicated to mental health and well-being, and I'm your host, Chrissy B. Now, as you know, we like to encourage our viewers to open up about their mental health and talk about their feelings, but for some, this is easier said than done. What if you find it difficult to express your feelings by talking? What if you're afraid people won't understand you? What if you don't fully actually understand what you're going through yourself? Well, there are other ways of expressing yourself which we'll be looking at on this episode. My real-life story guest today is upcoming singer-songwriter London King. She started suffering from depression and anxiety at age 16 and wrote a song describing her journey. She'll be telling us all about it and will also be singing Half the Wolf I Know right here in the studio. Also on the show today, we have our resident psychologist Dr Audrey Tang for this week's Psychology Matters, and she'll be talking about the different ways you can express your feelings and the benefits. We'll then be featuring our Cake of the Week courtesy of the Blackstock Kitchen, and believe it or not, people also express themselves through baking. And beauty expert Sani Som will be talking about expressing yourself through makeup. We then go to fitness expert Natalia Kotoska for a lower body circuit, and then we're off to Hannah's Kitchen for a super healthy and delicious recipe. And courtesy of Head Talks, we're going to watch a short interview with Alistair Campbell, who was former Prime Minister Tony Blair's former press secretary. Now, he talks about his own struggles and how he thinks we can get rid of mental health taboo. And finally, we have on Dr Rob Hicks to answer your medical questions. So let's get started with our real-life story guest, London King. Welcome to the show, London.
Hi.
It's lovely to have you on. So you're here to talk about the mental health issues that you've been going through and what you've done about them. But first of all, can you tell us when these issues started and why?
So these issues first started, and the first time I actually noticed them was when I was 16.
Okay.
So I was noticing that there was something quite not going the right way. I had a lot of suicidal thoughts, and sometimes I was waking up in the morning with emptiness in my chest, and I was just feeling sad and melancholic, and sometimes I was overeating, sometimes I was undereating. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of symptoms that were kind of red flags. They were kind of big red flags, but I actually wasn't able, and I wasn't brave enough to ask for help up until I actually moved to London, so age 18, and that's when I got diagnosed with major depressive disorder and post-traumatic disorder for the first time.
So it was sort of something that you'd been through in your past that had basically triggered all this that
yeah,
you were going through?
When I was 11, I have lost a family member that triggered my depression and my post-traumatic disorder. But I didn't know up until I was age 18. I just thought that there was something wrong with me, and I just thought that it was me. Yeah. Obviously, when you're that age, when you're so young, you never think about depression, about these things. You never really think about mental illnesses, but you know that it's not normal to want it to,
That's it. When you actually opened up about it, because I know you kept it for a while to yourself, but when you actually opened up, was that a relief for you or was it scary?
It has been scary for many, many years. The first time that I actually got my first diagnosis, which was major depressive disorder and post-traumatic disorder, I've waited 4 years to actually admit it to myself that was real. Because believe it or not, even though you know that is true, you know that that's it, and you know that you have to do something to look for help because that is your life that is at risk. You just don't want to, you're kind of in denial for a long time because it's a hard thing to accept, and there's a lot of stigma around this. So even if your friends, you know that your friends are going to support you and stuff like that, but there's a voice inside of you that tells you you're wrong, which is, this is wrong. You're not wrong. Like this can happen. It can happen to anyone. Yeah. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. And the first person you need to be honest with is yourself. Yeah. Otherwise, you will not be able to find help. I was not able to accept help from professionals up until I actually admitted to myself that that's what it is. But there's something that can be done. Yeah. But if you don't go to a specialist, if you don't go to somebody that actually knows what they're doing, you're never gonna be able to figure out. And I'll tell you this, you do know that there's something there. You do know that inside of you, oh God, there must be something that happened. I feel like there's something that is triggering all of this, but you're not quite able to understand it on your own. Yeah. And I understood this as well. So that's when I said, do your job. Your job is to get yourself better. Yeah. Nobody else can do it. No one can move your legs for you, because sometimes I was even scared of going to appointments and to what they might say. There's a lot of scare involved in, getting treated and accepting the truth, but it needs to be done, bottom line.
You were brave to go ahead with that and, to find out what the issue was, and now you're dealing with everything. But also you've done something really great, and you've actually written a song. Can you tell us what the song's called and what it's about?
So the song is called Half the Wolf I Know. Funny enough, is the last song I wrote in the EP that I'm coming out this year, because it was really hard just to find the words to explain what I was feeling inside, because it's always hard to find words, and put them in paper and say, okay, London, this is going to go out to the world, to everybody, and everybody can hear it, and everybody's going to know what you've been struggling with. So I was like, what if they're going to judge you? So I procrastinated a lot writing this song, but there was a point when I said, I don't care. I don't care. You want to write a beautiful song because you want people to feel stronger, and you want them to understand that even when they feel like there's nothing left to fight for, actually there is. Yeah. And you can come from the bottom of the pit. You can come up. So that's what I did. And I honestly did not care less about what people could think. And
I'm so glad you didn't, because it's a very passionate song. It's really we're going to be hearing the song later on towards the end of the show, but it's very passionate, it's very expressive, and it really does describe, that struggle and, that fight against things. But can you tell us, what does the half wolf symbolize in the song?
So it's funny, I've always saw myself as either a lion or a wolf. In my most thoughtful and quiet days, I like to see myself as a wolf. I've always seen the wolf as this regal, elegant animal that just moves alone in life. Sometimes he gets along with other wolves, but most of the times he's a very lone animal. So I wanted to find a metaphor that involved an animal that I love, that could describe what this illness does to a symbol of integrity and power. And that's what the wolf resembles to me, power. So half the wolf is, to me, is a metaphor to say that this illness, it really cuts you in half. And I couldn't recognize myself at some point. I was doing things, I was like, why do you do this? This is so not you. So the half wolf is literally the illness cutting you in half.
Okay, that's very expressive. That's that's amazing. Just finally, London as well. If anyone's in a really low place at the moment and they're thinking that it's not even worth going on, what would you say to them?
I would say that I have been there. I know exactly what it is. I know exactly what it feels like, and I know that there's a lot of lies that you tell to yourself, that it's not worthy going on, that it's always going to be forever like this, but it's not. It's not going to be forever like this. Part of this illness is that it you drown in a lot of lies that you tell yourself, that the illness tells you, but there's always something to fight for. And even in the darkest moments, and even when you're literally pulled down in the bottom of the ocean, you have the strength to pull yourself up. I mean, I did it, you can do it.
Amazing. London, thank you so much for coming on to share your story, but you're not going yet, actually, because at the end of the show you will be singing this little song for us. Wonderful. Thank you so much, and we'll see you later.
I'll see you later. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, everybody, so now it's time to talk to our psychologist, Dr. Audrey Tang, about the benefits of expressing your feelings regarding mental health through different mediums. Welcome to the show, Audrey.
Thanks for having me, Chrissy.
So we saw from London's interview earlier that she expressed herself through her song, which she'll be performing for us later. Now, what other ways are there to actually express your feelings and your mental health other than talking? So
many ways, and it's whatever gets you going, really. So you can have the creative arts, so pottery or making a sculpture, making something, artwork itself, so painting, portraits, that sort of thing. Alternatively, you can have performing arts, so you've got the singing, you've got dance is another way, any form of movement. It might even be choreography. You can express yourself through a story that you've created. Or, of course, drama and theatre and acting is a great way to get emotions out too. Singing, of course, we all, that's a very common one, which is lovely. But then just take that step back with writing. You've got poetry as well. But then let's not forget that we've also got things like what we wear and how we do our hair and how we do our makeup. Those are also different ways of expressing ourselves. Even how we keep our house, how we keep our room, gardens. It's a very beautiful way as well of showing our personal touches, our choice of colours. So anything that makes us feel positive is a great way to express ourselves, but there's always a flip side as well. There are other ways of letting out that feeling where people do recognise that and say, oh, do you need to talk about something here? And that can be if you're playing quite aggressive music, or if you are going and playing very aggressive sports sometimes. Those are other ways. And then you might even have overspending. There's sometimes people, to make themselves feel better, will go out and spend something, and then you might always see that when somebody always has a new coat or always has a new outfit, maybe they've actually been doing it to cheer themselves up, so it doesn't hurt to ask them, are you okay? So there's very healthy ways of doing it. And there's also some ways which are often just coping mechanisms, ways that we really want to be dealing with those issues, but we can't find how to do it, so we find a different outlet. But with the positive ones, it's wonderful because not only does it give us a chance to express those feelings, which we may have trouble saying otherwise, but especially with creativity, we have ownership as well. That's our song, that's our poem. We have created that, that's come from within us, and that contribution to the world is absolutely amazing. So those are some ways.
I mean, I go into prisons sometimes with my husband. We do like prison ministry and stuff like that. And some of the poems that the inmates write are, I'm like gobsmacked sometimes when I read them. They're so expressive. Some of them are very dark. Obviously, they're explaining their feelings and everything, but it also helps them to let those feelings out. And they wouldn't necessarily talk about those things with anyone. But when you read them, it's like, wow.
It's there's so many different ways of expressing through as a therapeutic means as well. So not only through poetry and journaling, which is very popular, but play for young children is a nice way of doing that. Sometimes when working with a child who maybe is selective mute, using puppets to let them talk through the puppet. And that can just be one step removed from what you want to say. So if it sounds like the puppet's saying, or the animal or the toy is saying it, it's easier to express. However, what I would say though is, no matter how we choose to express ourselves, to make sure everybody's on the same page as us, there is no substitute for that conversation. So if our form of expression, whether through art, through poetry, through dance, is a means of getting to that point, it's absolutely wonderful. But it doesn't hurt also to have that conversation too.
Definitely. It's a good way to start, especially someone's, because I remember when I was going to talk about this later as well, when I wanted to really express what I was going through, I wrote a long letter. And that helped me, because it's like everything was so jumbled up in my head that when I wrote that letter, that's what actually started the process. And then I was able to speak to the person that was helping me, and he guided me through it. So it was really good.
Exactly. And with that, something that it's useful to remember is that we don't always have to share it either. Even if we've written a letter or a poem, it's up to us what we choose to do with it. But sometimes it's about getting it out there, because if we bottle it up, we tend to make it fester. When it festers, it gets even worse, and then we can't stop thinking about it. Then it really starts interfering with our everyday life. So whatever your means of expressing yourself, find something that works with you and then go with it. But try to use it as a starting point for a deeper conversation.
Wonderful. Audrey, thank you so much. But you are not leaving me yet, because Audrey is going to join me, and so will Rob Hicks, who's going to be doing Doctor's Answers later. We're going to be featuring our cake of the week. You're looking forward to that?
Very much.
And also we have on beauty expert Sani Sorman with tips on expressing yourself through makeup, which is something else that you mentioned, right? Okay, so do join us after this.
I think it's very important because it's a very interactive way for young people to take part and know the stigma around mental health and actually make a change. As we were advertising our Student Mental Health Dance Challenge, we had lots of people come forward. We had lots of boys here, where we know that lots of boys aren't actually able to talk about mental health.
Welcome back to today's Chrissy B Show, everybody. So, as you can see, our lovely Audrey is back, and we've also been joined by Dr. Rob Hicks. And you might think this is a bit different what we're doing today, because our lovely Helena Shard, who normally does a helping of Happy every week, has got the flu today, so she's not here. So I've asked Rob and Audrey to do Cake of the Week with me. There won't be any news, we'll just be watching us eating and commenting on this lovely cake that we've got in front of us. So this week, our Cake of the Week comes from the Blackstock Kitchen and is baked by the very talented Rowan Naik. I hope that's how you pronounce it. And it's an Earl Grey and bergamot tea cake. Now, Rob, you always talk about why it's important to sort of stop and have a cup of tea, because there is tea in this cake as well, by the way. Yeah.
I do, because I think it's a natural break. It's a guilt-free break. So there's the ritual of making the tea, as well as taking the time to drink it. And one of the problems we have, I think, in this day and age is twofold. One is we don't stop. We don't take time out as much as we should do. And when we do take time out, we often feel guilty about it.
Yes, it's
true. And I remember being taught when I was a junior doctor by my consultant, and she said, unless you look after yourself properly, you can't hope to look after others as well as you should be.
That's it.
And my initial response to that was, well, surely that's selfishness. And she said, no, it's not, it's self-caring. And that's a lesson that I learned many years ago, and a lesson that I like to share with over the years with medical students as well, and my patients.
I'd like to extend on that point as well, because I know we often think if we're looking after ourselves and we're taking that time out, there's time that we're not spending with patients or with clients or whoever it might be. But then the whole thing is, if your body then breaks down because you haven't given it that chance to recuperate, relax, re-energize, who else is going to do that job? And certainly who else is going to do it as well as you? So
and actually what people find, as I used to ask people to, and I still do, so just try it. Because when I say take 5 minutes out every hour, they look at me as if I'm crazy. And I say, well, just try it for a fortnight. And what they come back and say is that they're actually more productive. They still get the stuff done.
That's
but they're actually more productive. So they haven't lost the time. But they are better at what they're doing.
Now, Rob, just to clarify, right, we're not saying that they should have a piece of cake every 5 minutes, of the hour.
No.
But we were saying, it's good to take time out. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And for the people actually that say, well, you guys, you cover nutrition on the programme, aren't you being a bit hypocritical? No, because it's okay to treat yourself every now and then, right? It's not, we're not too strict, because when we're too strict, it's not good either.
The whole problem if we're too strict and too restrictive is that there may come a time where we decide to cheat on that restriction. And if we've been depriving ourselves so much of the time because our brain thinks we've deprived ourselves, there's a tendency to overindulge, and that can be more problematic for us. So actually making healthy choices, which is an indulgence but in moderation,
and this is a lovely home-baked cake, as you can see. It's, So should we get stuck in? Should I cut it? Okay, so this is I've never tasted an Earl Grey and bergamot
No, it's really unusual.
Yeah, it's very unusual. And actually, I was just having a look on the Instagram page for the Blackstock Kitchen, and they've got these amazing, what they call those cinnamon buns and stuff.
Oh,
they look so nice. Here you go, Audrey. You can get stuck in, my lovely.
Amazing. Thank you very
next it's
much.
Rob.
I think the other thing is that eating is not just about nutrition.
Would you like a spoon, or do you want to just get
It's about pleasure as well. It's the whole process of, we're not feeding ourselves just to stay healthy and stay alive. We're actually feeding ourselves to enjoy life at the same time. So it's this. Oh well, I'm gonna be quiet now.
But you're quiet. Okay. So what's the verdict, everybody? Should I just get my piece as well?
That's beautiful.
Lovely.
It's not too sweet actually, which I really like about cake. The cream is really, really lovely. It's very light. Texture's really light. And I think that's one of the most
Keep going,
enjoyable
Audrey. I'm
things
still
about.
eating.
Yeah, I want to put more in my mouth now.
These are the kind of cakes I love. Even though you get them in a coffee shop where they taste like they've been baked by mummy, don't they?
But also they
lovely.
also look like they've been home baked.
Yeah.
You know, it's beautiful. It's not perfect all the way around.
No, let me turn it around so the camera can actually see.
I love cakes like this.
I haven't cut it very well, by the way. So everybody, sorry,
that's again, it is part of expression, how you decorate a cake, how you create a cake. And we mustn't forget that when we were children, we used to do anything and it used to be praised often and appreciated. But somewhere along the line, as we grew up and there were more demands placed on us and the right way of doing things, we stopped some of that expression, we stopped some of that creativity. It doesn't hurt to revisit what made us really happy previously, because that just gets us back in touch with what we were passionate about, what we really enjoyed.
I love this cake.
Oh, it's
I love the Earl Grey taste.
cream.
It's not overpowering, is it? It's just very subtle.
No,
but it does
just
come through.
there's a hint,
Lovely.
isn't it? Yeah.
So thanks very much again for our cake of the week, which is an Earl Grey and bergamot tea cake from the Blackstock Kitchen and baked by the very talented Rowan Naik. And if you'd like to feature your goodies, if you're a bakery or a baker and you'd like to let us know about your cakes and would love to feature them here on the programme, all you have to do is email us on info@chrissybshow.tv. Thank you for helping me with the cake of the week, both.
Thank you.
I'm sure Helena's really jealous now. So all the best, Helena. I hope you get better soon.
Get well soon.
But now it's time to hear from our resident beauty expert, Sani Sulman, with tips on how to express yourself through makeup.
Hi, my name is Sani and I am the resident makeup artist here at the Chrissy B Show. Today we're going to talk about expressing yourself through makeup. Now, expressing yourself through makeup is a lot of fun because it's low commitment. You can wash it off, so you can try out lots of different things without having to worry about the consequences, unlike dyeing your hair, for example. Now, the first thing I'd like to talk to you about is lipstick. Lipstick can really change your mood and it can really express different feelings and different kinds of personas. And I'm going to show you 3 of my favorite lipsticks for kind of bringing out different sides to myself and expressing those to people around me. Now, when I want to be kind of, I would say when I want to go for a 60s look, when I want to do kind of a little bit of a retro girl look, I tend to go for a really coral, beautiful lipstick, and I team it with a cat eye. If I'm a bit more formal, if I need to be in a professional atmosphere, I go for a color that I like to call your lips but better. So it's kind of like the color of lips, but just a little bit pinker and a little bit more put together. And then when I really want to kind of like bring out my more fun side, I go for shocking pink. Now, this really used to work when I had blonde hair, so we'll see if it works with my current hair color, but I'm sure it will. And that really kind of not only brings out my fun side, but lipstick has the power to change how you kind of express yourself. So my mannerisms become a little bit different as well, depending on the lipstick I wear. Now, my second point is about cultural references. seeking out different kinds of cultural references is really fun in makeup. So looking at different decades, for example, or different cultural styles. So I love to kind of go on Pinterest and look at lots of 60s pictures and kind of be inspired by those, or look at old Hollywood stars from the 40s, and they can really inspire your makeup. And I make different little boards depending on moods, and doing this kind of research, like when you're not actually doing your makeup, is really fun, and it's kind of useful to start building up a library of different looks in your mind. Now, my next tip can look a little bit scary. So this is going out of your comfort zone with color. Now, I tend to play around with lipstick colors, but my eye makeup, I'm not that adventurous when it comes to color. So when I do want to kind of like challenge myself a little bit, I pick up a palette that I often use, and normally I will be using these kind of more neutral shades. However, I just wildly pick a color. So for example, this is a beautiful color, but I would never use it on my eyes. It's kind of like a moss or olive green, I would call it. But I start with that, and then I start building up my eye look with that and see where it goes. Or even a blue one. Most people can get away with using colors that they didn't think was possible. The mistake is you're kind of like trying in a hurry. So if you do it on a Sunday afternoon when you don't have much else to do, it's better to just like try it and play it. But just pick a color that you wish you could wear, and then see what comes out when you just have like a little play. Make yourself a cup of tea and make like a little moment of it. Now, if you are going for a more formal look, so let's say an interview, or you're going to an important business meeting, I find it quite useful to, again, Pinterest. Pinterest is a big thing in my life, to go on Pinterest and find pictures of this woman that I want to portray. So if I tend to get quite nervous in interview situations, so I will find a picture of a polished businesswoman, and she's dressed a certain way and her makeup is a certain way, and I will kind of get inspiration so that I myself, as Sani, might not feel super confident being in a tough interview or in front of tons of people, but I kind of find a version of myself and then portray that with makeup and kind of get into a role a little bit. Now, if you kind of like suffer from any kind of social anxiety, or if you have to be in front of people and you don't really like it, you might know what I mean. Now, one of my favorite things is YouTube tutorials. I used to do YouTube tutorials as well, and the channel is still up there, but I haven't been doing them for about 6 months, I would say. But I started off my channel doing Hollywood icons, like different kinds of Hollywood icon makeups. Like there's Marlene Dietrich, and there is Marilyn Monroe, there's Brigitte Bardot, all kinds of things like that. And I love to reference them, and I like to look at other people's tutorials. And literally while I'm doing my makeup, if it's not a busy, weekday morning, if I have a little bit more time, I will just put a tutorial up and I will let that inspire me and like kind of get my my creative juices flowing, and I will just follow it. Not to a T. I mean, I am quite aware that the person doing it probably doesn't have the same features as me, but just kind of get inspired by it and let me express something that I might have not done otherwise. And last but not least is take photos of yourself. So once you have done your makeup, pick up your camera, snap a few photos, to pose for those selfies, because when you look at yourself in the mirror, you actually see something different than you do in a photo. So it's really useful to reference those photos afterwards, after your experiments with, your blue eyeshadow or your green eyeshadow. And like, when you look in the mirror and you'll make funny faces, or you're just gonna go, not so sure about it, but going good lighting, take some photos of yourself and you might be really surprised by what you see. So those were some of my tips for expressing yourself with makeup. I hope you enjoy them, and let the show know if you try out some of them, and I will see you again next time.
Thank you very much to Sani there. Now, after the break, we'll go to fitness expert Natalia Katowska for a lower body circuit. And then we're off to Hannah's kitchen for a super healthy and delicious recipe. And courtesy of Head Talks, we're going to watch a short interview with Alistair Campbell, who was the former Prime Minister Tony Blair's former press secretary. Now, he talks about his own struggles and how he thinks we can get rid of mental health taboo. Hi, I'm Chrissy B, host of the UK's only TV programme dedicated to mental health and well-being, The Chrissy B Show, which airs on MyTV Sky 191 every Monday, Wednesday and Friday. Follow our social media on YouTube, Instagram and Twitter at Chrissy B Show and our Facebook page, The Chrissy B Show. For more information, visit chrissybshow.tv. Welcome back to today's Chrissy B Show, everybody. So now it's time for fitness with Natalia Katowska.
Hey guys, it's me, NK Wood with Nat, your fitness instructor, and today I prepare for you amazing lower body circuit. Quite hard, but I'm sure you can do it, so stay with me. 3 exercises, 60 seconds long each, one after another with 1 minute break in between, and we're gonna repeat that 3 times. First one, so you go all the way down, reverse lunge, and you go all the way up. High up, you jump, push off of your calf, and you go 30 seconds one leg, only that. 30 seconds one leg. Once you're done, you change it to another leg. All the way up, as high as you can, knee as close to the floor as possible. And breathe. Keep breathing and keep going. 30 seconds each leg, that gives you 60 seconds. First exercise. Second one, we go to the side, to the side. In, high knee, as fast as you can for 1 minute long. Breathe. That's the second one. Third one, stay with me, it's gonna get harder. You go all the way down. You jump, change directions. You jump, change directions. You go forward, back. Yeah, got it? One more time. All the way down. Change direction, forward, back. Woo! I'm already super tired and we have to go for 60 seconds, non-stop. Again, 3 exercises, 60 seconds long, 1 minute break. Repeat that block 3 times. How do you think? How do you think you can do it? I'm sure you can. So stay with me, work out with us, and I see you later.
Thank you very much to Natalia there. So now it's off to Hannah's kitchen and she's going to be making a healthy recipe of little pumpkins.
Hello and welcome to the Chrissy B Show. My name's Hannah Richards and today I'm going to stuff some pumpkins. So guys, I found these cute little pumpkins in the supermarket and all I've done is I've chopped them in half, I've taken their seeds out and then I've roasted them in the oven. That's all I've done. And so you want to make sure that when they come out of the oven, they'll probably only take about 20-30 minutes because they're so small, that they are just a little bit golden. Some bits will be a bit denser than others and you can cut some of that flesh out. But as long as you've got some bottoms with some hollowness in them, you can stuff them. So we're going to use some feta cheese. So take about 1/3 of a block of feta cheese, roughly about that size, and just crumble it into a bowl. And we're going to use some garden herbs. And you'll probably find these herbs in your garden, but certainly in your supermarket. We're going to start with some basil. Just going to take a little bit off there. And all you're going to do is really loosely rip it apart into the smallest bits you can and add it into the feta. We're going to add a little bit of black pepper And we're going to add some salt. And we're actually going to add a little bit of some turmeric. So just take the ground turmeric powder. You can get this in the supermarket or a grocer's, and you're just going to sprinkle it in there. Maybe a teaspoon, something like that. And actually this time, I'm just going to mix it all around. So you can start seeing it sort of take a bit of color with the turmeric. I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil. And that's going to help me stick it all together for the pumpkin. Okay, so just take a little bit at a time and stuff each one as you go. So once you've got your little pumpkins stuffed, we're going to put them back into the grill, and this time you do have to keep an eye on them because you don't want anything burning, and they won't take very long at all. So they've got a nice little golden crisp colour on them. Watch those dinders as you plate them up. They're very hot. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. And there is a perfect little pumpkin snack. It could be breakfast, it could be lunch, it could be dinner, it could be a midnight snack. I'm Hannah Richards, cooking for the Chrissy B Show. I hope you've enjoyed it, guys.
Thank you very much to Hannah. So now, courtesy of Head Talks, we're going to watch a short interview with Alistair Campbell, who was the former Prime Minister Tony Blair's former press secretary. Now, he talks about his own struggles and how he thinks we can get rid of mental health taboo.
I look back, and if I just look at the breakdown in terms of what it was like and how it felt and how awful it was, then it was the worst, one of the worst things that ever happened to me. But I now look at it also as one of the best things that ever happened to me, because I think it made me in many ways. People often used to say when I was really getting it and really under the cosh, and you'd have people, friends, say, how can you cope with this? How can you put up with it? And I think I've always been quite a resilient character, but I think it gave me resilience. I think it gave me an ability to understand the difference between pressure that can make you perform better and pressure that can destroy you. What was difficult was my whole family was against me doing it. And that's quite difficult when you're kind of swimming against that. But I kind of felt inside me I had to do it. But I took a month. I mean, because I'm seen as this kind of, very close to Tony and all the rest of it, people just assume it was like, kind of, oh, well, he won and I won. He became leader, I went and helped him. I took a month to decide. I said no several times. And part of my thinking, I'll be honest, was, well, I've cracked up before under, some pressure. I was a very young news editor doing a job I wasn't really ready for. But I knew, having known and covered politics for a long time, I knew that the job I was going into was going to be way more pressure. And so I had to really, really think about it. And to be fair to Tony, the reason I told him, he knew about the breakdown, but the reason I really went through it with him in detail was so that he understood, why I was a bit worried about it. And I guess it was good for me that he didn't really care about that. He didn't see me as somebody who was going to crack. He didn't see me as somebody who wouldn't be able to cope with the pressure. When the BBC did their In the Mind, they did a week of programming, which was great, fantastic. That's all great. And the Time to Change campaign, really happy about that, because I think the media has a huge role to play in this. And David Cameron did an interview for the whole thing, which again, great that the Prime Minister feels that's an important thing to do and a good use of his time to kind of lock into that issue again. Great. But there was one part in the interview where he was talking about waiting times. And he said that, we want to move towards a position where anyone with psychosis doesn't have to wait more than 2 weeks. Well, I was trying to think, with my equality for physical and mental health hat on, what's the physical equivalent of psychosis? And it's like, it's a car crash. It's going through the windscreen and lying in the middle of the motorway, not sure whether you can move your limbs. Now, just imagine if our response to somebody on that road now, going through the windscreen and landing on the road, was for somebody to come and say, ambulance will be here in 2 weeks, don't worry. So I think we've got a long way to go. I can remember when I was growing up, our next door neighbour in Yorkshire getting cancer. And I can remember my mum telling me, you've got cancer, don't tell anybody. And that was because at the time, people called it the big C. And usually if you give something a label, it's because you don't want to talk about it, and it's a taboo. Now the taboo around cancer has gone, and that has had a really positive impact upon treatment and services for cancer. So I think if we can get rid of the taboo surrounding mental health and mental illness, then we can have a similar impact. Everybody uses this figure 1 in 4. 1 in 4 of us will at some point have a mental health problem. And I actually think we'd be far better to go to 1 in 1. Because there's not a single person alive who hasn't needed a doctor at some point for a physical health problem. So why do we imagine that the mind for 75% of the population is going to operate perfectly well all of the time? It doesn't. And so I think that the idea of moving, when we talk about parity between physical and mental health, I think it's right across the board in attitudes to it. It's not just about the services, it's not just about the awareness, it's about how we think about it, how we feel about it. And I think the great difficulty has always been that if you break your leg and you're on crutches, people look at you and they know you've broken your leg. If you've got cancer and you've had chemotherapy and your hair's all fallen out and you've got that kind of that look that people have, people look at you and they know. And we've developed the language to deal with that. But when you walk down the street and you see somebody in emotional distress, which I think you see more and more of, we haven't got the language. And often, 9 times out of 10 probably, the best thing that any of us can do is just go up to that person and say, you okay? And 9 times out of 10, if they're not, they'll say no.
Thank you very much to Head Talks for that video, and if you'd like to know more about them, please do head over to our website, chrissybshow.tv, and click on our contributors section. Well, after the break, we have on again Dr. Rob Hicks answering your medical questions, including this one. My granddad has diabetes, his birthday's coming up, and I really want to buy him a birthday cake to celebrate. Is one piece of cake going to do any harm? Let's see what Rob has to say. Welcome back to today's Chrissy B Show, everybody, and now it's time for Doctor's Answers with Dr. Rob Hicks. Have you recovered from that lovely cake, Rob?
Oh goodness, I could do with a second slice.
Oh, let's see if there's any left, because I know the crew wants some as well.
Okay.
All right. So are you ready to answer some questions after that lovely
indeed.
treat that you had? Okay, so first question. My granddad has diabetes and is on insulin. His birthday is coming up and I really want to buy him a birthday cake to celebrate. My mother, however, says no because of his condition. Is one piece of cake once a year really going to do any harm?
Well, unless he's been advised not to eat cake, then the answer is no. One piece of birthday cake is not going to do him any harm.
Okay.
In fact, if you go onto the Diabetes UK website, you will actually find recipes for making cakes. So there's no reason why somebody with diabetes can't have a slice of birthday cake on their birthday. And in fact, currently, the advice for anybody with diabetes is to eat a healthy diet, the same diet as somebody who hasn't got diabetes should be eating. So the one that we should all be eating, with lots of fruit and veg, etc. So obviously it's important, you know, when you've got diabetes, that really you can eat anything, but like all of us, you should eat anything but in moderation. And it is very, very important that your grandfather monitors his blood sugar as he's been advised to do by his doctor or his diabetes nurse. But really, it's a celebration, one piece of birthday cake. Enjoy it.
I agree, Rob. Okay, lovely. Thank you. Next question. At times, I get a pulling pain starting from my left hip and going all the way down my leg. It feels like something is caught. I can't pinpoint a particular trigger. It sometimes happens while I'm laying down to sleep and at times when I'm walking. What could the problem be?
Well, there are lots of different possible causes for this symptom, and sometimes it depends on a person's age. It depends on the sort of activities they do, maybe the job that they do. So what I would suggest you do in the first instance is keep what we call a symptom diary. So try and write down the sort of things you are doing or you have been doing in the 48 hours prior to when you get this symptom. So because that might help you identify what actually is triggering the symptom for you. So let's look at some of the potential causes. Well, it could be an injury. You know, if you're playing sport or you're doing lots of exercise, you may have injured that hip without realizing it. It might be what we call overuse. So again, based on an activity or an occupation, or if you're driving a car in traffic and you're having to use the clutch a lot, then that might be putting a lot of pressure on the muscles around that joint. Arthritis is certainly a possibility. A lax joint, so it's not as stable as it should be, could be the reason. Another thing is it might be something called impingement syndrome, where actually the hip is a ball and socket joint, but if it hasn't quite developed properly, then it may catch, as you describe, and feel like it's catching. So I think the important thing to do is, in addition to the symptom diary, is have it checked out, because the bottom line is there are, as I said, there's so many different things it could be. That you want to get a precise diagnosis and then you'll get the appropriate treatment. But in the meantime, I would say that if you are doing lots of activities, obviously make sure that you warm up, even if you're going out for a brisk walk and you find that that's triggering it, because you may find that those sorts of things, warming up, taking it a little bit more steady, might mean that you don't suffer that pain at all. It goes away on its own. But get it checked out and take along the symptom diary with you, and be prepared to answer questions from your doctor about whether there are other symptoms related to weakness, swelling, numbness, or pins and needles, for example. Because sometimes if it's something like sciatica, then it can cause the symptom you're describing, but also other neurological symptoms as well.
Lovely, Rob. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And we'll see you again next time.
Yes.
And everybody, as you know, if you have a question for Dr. Rob Hicks, all you need to do is email us on doctor@chrissybshow.tv. Well, now it's time for my thought of the day. Thank you very much to all my guests for today and also our contributors. So I did mention this earlier with Audrey, where when I was actually in the process of getting help for the depression and other mental health issues I was going through, I couldn't express myself very well. I found it very difficult I could talk, I didn't have a problem talking, but it was just kind of putting into words what I was feeling. So when I eventually found the charity that helped me recover completely, I remember trying to speak to the advisor, and I felt like he didn't really understand what I was saying, what I was going through. So I wrote him a really, really long letter, just said everything there. And it was actually good for me as well to write that. It took me a while, but then once I gave that to him, I don't know if he read it in detail and he understood, but something that I'd just like to mention, don't worry if someone that is trying to help you doesn't understand what you're going through or doesn't understand how you feel, because to be honest with you, if someone's not been depressed or is not depressed, it's very difficult to understand what it's actually like. So people don't need to understand how exactly you feel in order to help you necessarily. Sometimes it's just, their positivity or, what they believe in and things like that can actually help bring you out of depression and anxiety. So, as long as if you feel that it's important to express yourself, then of course it's fine to do that, whether through writing or anything, at least initially, until you can actually start to talk about it better. So don't worry too much about how to express yourself. Find your way to do that, but then also don't worry about if the person that is helping you or the organization doesn't understand exactly what you're going through. That's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that you've gotten it off your chest and you are taking active measures to actually now do something about it. So everyone, we have reached the end of today's program, almost, because we are going to be hearing the great song that London King wrote, and she's going to be singing it right here in this studio, and it's called Half the Wolf I Know. But before that, if you have a story that you would like to share, please do email us on info@chrissybshow.tv. You can also tweet us at Chrissy B Show or leave a message on our Facebook page, The Chrissy B Show. And if you'd like to know more about my mental health journey and how I beat depression, you can visit my personal website, which is mylifeafterdepression.com. Well, everybody, bye-bye from me, but let's go now to London King with Half the Wolf I Know.
Like I've never felt. I'm naked to the world, and I know I feel so compelled, so compelled. Lonely girl, you can't escape this war. Lonely girl, reach for that open door. You're half the wolf I know. Lonely girl, face this battlefield alone. Lonely girl, you feel it in your bones. You're half the wolf I know. I catch my breath, I know that I'll survive. I'm not ashamed that I fall so hard sometimes. I wipe my blood from the tracks. Even though you reject the real me, I'll be back, I will rise upon my feet. 'Cause you know you think I'm a freak.